Right, hello there, my estranged football friends. Adam Clery here, 442. Yes, hello, I'm back. These are nice new title cards and graphics, aren't they? And according to the internet, which I have read, Arsenal did not just beat Manchester City yesterday, they humbled them. And I know that I normally do an intro that's far longer and more entertaining than this, but there is a lot to cover in this game, and I've got no idea if I can remember how to use Adobe Premiere Pro, so yeah. Okay, so as has already been slightly teased, this was your Arsenal lineup, no real surprises there, and this was your Manchester City lineup, no surprises there, except Mamouche and Foden were not really where we thought they would be, and it didn't really matter, because it didn't really get anything going. Now, before we start, the H-bomb, the humbling word that's doing the rounds, and people are already getting printed on the back of shirts, that is low-hanging fruit, but I do think when you tell one team to be humble, and then in the reverse fixture, they don't just beat you, but they bend you all the way over, I think you can actually get away with that. So, sorry Manchester City fans, this is quite funny. And also, more importantly, according to 𝗕𝗫𝗧𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏, that is the first time Man City have conceded 5 goals from open play in a single game since 2008. For context, this is what I looked like in 2008. That was time ago. Now, the key to this, in my opinion, is that Arsenal used this sort of quite innovative, new, I certainly haven't seen it before, like X-shaped scissor 3-2 pressing structure, and Man City did not really know what to do with that. But before we get into the specifics of it all, you have to look at Chelsea. Now, you'll no doubt remember the Manchester City versus Chelsea game the other week, because Man City won it, and everyone was like, oh look, they're back. But what jumped out at me about it was just how sort of, like, passive Chelsea were. Like you saw in the first couple of minutes, City were there for the taking, but they just sort of sat off them. They kept the high line that they like to have to squeeze the pitch, but then they had no real intensity in the final third, and they just kind of allowed Man City to play through them. Which is an absolutely baffling decision to make, I think, because Man City have proved time and again this season how vulnerable they are in all the various transitions you get in a football match, which if you don't understand that term, we will explain later. Anyway, Arsenal in this game were both the moral and sexual opposites to that. They just them up. Now, the goals do, very conveniently, illustrate this a lot better than any stats, numbers, or just other nerd stuff that I could come out with. But before we get a look at those, I want you to get a look at this. This right here, and I'll just get rid of all the players so you can see it better, is every high turnover Arsenal did in that game. Every time they won a tackle, an interception, or otherwise took the ball off Man City in what I would deem to be a dangerous area. And I know what you're thinking, oh, is that a lot? I haven't really got much basis for comparison. Well, these are all the times Man City did the exact same thing. So yes, it was a lot. That is absolutely night and day in regards to sort of like aggression mindset and where you're trying to put the pressure on the opposition. And as a result, a number of Arsenal's goals and other chances, sorry, Kai Havertz, came directly from this. So allow me to attempt to explain, right? The objective for Arsenal off the ball was this quite novel, by which I mean I haven't seen it before, it doesn't mean it's actually you, 5-3-2 shape, this X thing going on, whoops. And it sounds quite negative, doesn't it? Like Man United are getting pelters at the minute for defending with 5 players. It's no good for an ambitious team in the Premier League. Too many bodies here, not enough bodies there. But the way it works is very clever. And that's because of the way it like morphs and shifts around depending on what they're doing with the press. So the reason you've got 5 is because most teams end up with 5 attackers. And these aren't like set in a line, they move with these players. Like if anybody tries to drop short to get on the ball, you just go with them. This player in the central here, that's one of the midfielders. He can follow that central player around as much as they like. It's quite, it's a word I want, malleable. But the important part was these 5 players here, right? Because it's their job to block off this entire central area of the pitch. Like, it's quite narrow. These are your 2 wide players who should be out there, but they've sort of tucked in. This was Declan Rice, who was sort of going in between, but sort of staying back there. And this was Havertz and Odegaard, who do normally lead the press. And it looks quite staggered and spaced out, doesn't it? But if you think about it from this perspective, right, there's no way through that as a pass in this zone. But what it also does, and this is really clever and my favourite part of it, right, is it creates traps. Like, it makes these little pockets in, like, the elbow joint of the shape that feel like they're quite safe, and that playing into them feels like incisive and good for you. But the thing is, they are quite literally a trap, and Man City kept falling into it. So the first example is quite predictably the first goal, because it happened within like 90 seconds. Man City had a back three, because Núñez would either invert into the middle or push into the last line. So when they drop back all the way, they want to bring Steffen here in to keep it as a back four. And this is what's really good about Kai Havertz, right? Because he, from here, wants to go and press the goalkeeper, which is the sensible thing to do. But instead of doing it this way, he does it this way, removing the pass out to Akanji, so it goes to Stones. But Yu-Gi-Oh, my friends, have Man City activated Arsenal's trap card. Now, this 5 that Arsenal are pressing with, this X shape, has shut down all the central options, right? You cannot go in this direction. But like I said, in the elbow of the shape, there is a gap, and Akanji wanders into that. So he's a mark, he's free. He's absolutely the right pass for John Stones in this situation. But look at Leandro Trossard's body shape. He is already on his way to close Akanji down before Stones is committed with the pass. In fact, he times it so well that he isn't going when Stones looks at Akanji, but as soon as he looks down at the ball and he loses the ability to see, that's when he goes. That is something you'll spend so much time on the training ground working on. It must be mad seeing it work that effectively so early in a big game. Like, Akanji gets the ball here, he needs to open up his body and pass it forward, but because of the timing and the intensity of Trossard's movements, he can't. He can't turn around. You just got to face the way he came, and all of a sudden, with this shape here, all of his options are a bag of shit. In the quite understandable, in my opinion, panic that ensues, he ends up giving the ball away, he gives it to Havertz, he gives it to Odegaard, and that's 1-0. And Arsenal just kept doing this to them, like, throughout the game, seeing if they could bait them in to either going into the middle here where all their players were, or getting into one of these traps so they could then shut it down and force you backwards. And if you look at all of Manchester City's failed passes in this game, like, yes, they're everywhere because across the course of the 90 minutes, but look at the concentration of them. They either start or end in this exact area of the pitch. That is staggering. And again, just for context, these are Arsenal's failed passes, and yes, again, they are everywhere. Most of them are Raya trying to get in behind Guardiola, which I didn't actually notice happening during the game, but they keep the ball far more consistently in these areas. They haven't got this insane build-up of turnovers. And I know, you intelligent person, you're already thinking here, well, then just City surely should go long in that situation. They've got Erling Haaland up front. He's a big, beefy boy. But that's what's clever about this sort of, like, change of the shape. Because you remember, Arsenal normally press fully, don't they, in a 4-4-2, right? They like doing that. But the reason they sort of shifted it to have these two narrower, then one going forward, then one behind, was so, and this was usually Thomas Partey, you could screen that ball into Haaland. If it goes really long, the centre-backs can sort of move over and challenge, but if they try and go over this and into his feet, he would step in front and cut that ball out. And City just had zero answer to this for really large chunks of the game. Like, here they managed to bait Kovacic into getting on it in this area. Odegaard nearly nicks it off him right in front of the goal. And for that Kai Havertz chance, which he's never, ever going to want to see again, look where that's come from. It's that little X again, except this time, yes, it is also a terrible, terrible decision from Ortega. Like, what do you want Kovacic to do with the ball in this situation? This modern obsession with getting this little bounce pass off to relieve the pressure. Like, just go direct with it, man. Grow up. Now, I may be making this game sound very exciting, right? And if you watched it, for large parts, it also wasn't. So everything I've said so far, basically, right, that's the first 25 minutes. Because after that, not a lot happened. So you're probably thinking, well, you're going to skip through all that, Adam. You're not going to talk about why nothing happened. That would be a really, really dull video. And no, actually, if I could just shock you for a second, I am, because it's weird, so bear with me. Between the kickoff and that Kai Havertz chance, right, this is every single successful Manchester City pass. Now just take a second, have a proper look at it. Where do you see the highest concentration, right? It's here, isn't it? It's this sort of like goalkeeper centre-back area. It's playing out from the back. It's exactly how Manchester City play, and it's exactly what these 5 Arsenal players were targeting. So this is about like 27, 28 minutes or whatever, right? And then it would be from there another 27 or 28 minutes until the Haaland equaliser. So this is the same amount of time, right? This is every Manchester City pass after that Kai Havertz chance. Do you see a difference? There's now hardly any in this part of the pitch, and those that are now either sideways or backwards. They're never trying to play it through this central area of the pitch. They're just going around Arsenal, which is giving them this sort of like horseshoe effect, because Arsenal now, because it takes longer to go that way, they can get back, they can set. Nothing happened because Arsenal completely broke Manchester City. And weirdly, if you actually look at Man City's equaliser, you can see several times in that move they should probably try and play it through the centre, but instead they go wide, they switch it to try and keep it out in these wide areas, and it's 3 moments of such superb individual quality that get them a goal. They don't really sort of open Arsenal up with this. But thing is, right, individual quality is not Manchester City's problem. They've probably still got more individual quality than any other team in the league, just about. Their problem is how they react when they lose the ball, regardless of where that is on the pitch. And having just got themselves back level, it's that kind of reaction that just throws the entire game away. Because Phil Foden should not give this ball away. He's too good a player to make this pass, but that can happen. Everyone will do that in a game of football. What matters is how you react. And there are 2 things to note here. A, the amount of space around Thomas Partey when he intercepts that pass, and B, the position of Man City's screen. Like Silva and Kovacic with the pivot, they are the ones supposed to be screening the defence. This is where they are. If you imagine that line between them is the screen. And then you jump that forward to right before he takes the shot. Seconds pass, enough time to do something, and this is the space around Thomas Partey, and this is the position of your screen. That's not how you react to this at any level. And I don't know how many times I'm going to end up saying it this season, right? But against any kind of team with a bit of athleticism, aggression, just running around a bit, right? Kovacic, Gundogan and Bernardo Silva do not cover enough ground to defend against that. Like, all you have to do is run at Manchester City and you'll get a chance. Like, the 4th goal is actually exactly the same as this second one. It's just the other kind of transition. Instead of giving it away near their own goal, they give it away near Arsenal's goal. And from here, where the ball is turned over, to here, when the shot is taken, there is not 1 ounce of pressure. There is not 1 physical, as I live and breathe, attempt at a tackle. They just run. And then even if you look at the 5th goal, which Opta have done a really nice illustration of here, I should point out, like, there's not 1 attempt at a challenge in 36 passes by a single Manchester City player. This is the longest passing sequence for a goal we've seen in the Premier League for like 2 or 3 years or something like that. Every single Arsenal player gets a touch of the ball, and it's just it's like they're just playing against a blue fog. Now, as I hope this video has thus far illustrated, that is how Arsenal beat Manchester City, but that wasn't what was on the sign above the door, was it? We were here to talk about a humbling, and in order to understand how they did that, I have 2.5 words for you, my friends. Miles Lewis-Skelly. And yes, that's why I've said 0.5. I've got 0 idea for hyphenated word is 1 or 2. So first up, I'll bring up both his heat map and his pass map. And for a midfielder who is deputising at left back and is, I think, like 9 years old, that is an extraordinary amount of contribution and pitch coverage. But it's not just that he sees an awful lot of the ball, but contained within this image is the suggestion that something massive, huge, enormous is happening for Arsenal. See, it's been discussed by me and absolutely everybody else on the planet that Arsenal do not get enough goal threat from this area. Martin Odegaard plays here, he makes pretty much everything happen. He links up, he goes for goal, he does all of this. But Declan Rice, who's normally the one who's here, does not add enough. Obviously, he's a very different player, that's not his game, but at times, the fact that all the threat comes from this side, not this side, can make Arsenal look a bit predictable, a bit unincisive, a bit risk-averse. But you put Lewis-Skelly in at left-back, and all of a sudden, two things start to happen when Arsenal have the ball. First off, he's very comfortable inverting into this part of the pitch here, which means Arsenal are very stable and secure on the ball. I did note, weirdly, Haaland bouncing off him like 2 or 3 times, which is funny. Now, maybe this is just a coincidence, but when compared to City's problems, it does feel like it might be a real thing. Because Miles Lewis-Skelly is there, and he can cover this ground, and he can make those recovery runs, and he has got more mobility in this part of the pitch if Arsenal lose the ball, all of a sudden Declan Rice looked a lot more comfortable being ambitious with his movement. He kept making these little runs into this space in behind from the midfield. Like, Arsenal almost never found him in any of them, and he started getting quite frustrated and throwing his arms around at it. But that's a level of ambition I can't remember seeing that frequently in a single game from him. Like, he does do it, but he doesn't do it that much. But for the third goal, something different happened entirely, because instead of him inverting into the base of the midfield and being this sort of secure thing, he actually did what 𝗕𝗫𝗧𝗥𝗔 does at Chelsea and inverted all the way into this sort of left-sided 10 position, which then Declan Rice then dropped back. You got the same shape and the exact same effect, but now he's come all the way in here, almost entirely untracked. And now if you look here, he's part of that top line of 5 attackers. Declan Rice has dropped a little bit deeper and does not make a hypocrite of himself and actually finds him with the pass. And because you've got Lewis-Skelly there, a very different player to Declan Rice, he straight away gets that, turns, faces up the defender, jumps on his other foot, and scores a quite brilliant goal. If you go all the way back to his passes in his heat map, you can see that this was clearly like a rotating part of the plan. Like 50% of his game is being steady and secure in this part of the pitch, getting into the pivot, but the other half of it is getting to the final third, actually. Get all the way down the left when you can, but also invert yourself into this area. And I cannot think of many players who are capable of doing that, let alone capable of doing that and doing it well. Let alone capable of doing that and doing it well before they've even done their A-levels. So yeah, that's how Arsenal humbled Manchester City. Identify weakness, exploit weakness, dance around in the rain of blood that spurts forward from said weakness, then do their celebrations and play Kendrick Lamar. And if you have enjoyed watching this video, and I really hope you did, because I've not done one in like, what, 2 weeks or something? Felt really nervous before I filmed it. You can subscribe to us here on FourFourTwo and watch those nerves disappear, like, what's the Blade Runner one? Tears in the bath. As most of you well know by now, nothing sustains my very life force quite like reading all your comments and thoughts on the matter. So Arsenal fans, how did that feel? Nice, tasty, delicious, possibly too sweet? Think you might win the league? Too far gone? Let me know in the comments below. And if for some reason any Man City fans have sat all the way through this, genuine question, would you sack Pep? This is not the play of a manager who's doing well. You can get me across all the socials at Adam Clery, C-L-E-R-Y, and I'll probably start using them again now that I'm back at work. The 442 socials are in the corner of the video. The latest issue of the magazine, My Word, that's available now from all good retailers and the bad ones as well. And before you ask, yes, it is nice to be back. I'm having a nice time. And I hope you did too, so goodbye.